When Reed Sheppard starts, he delivers, and he needs to start more as he leads the way with 28 points in the Rockets' blowout win against the Kings, a triple-double for Alperen Şengün, and a quiet, efficient 21 points for Kevin Durant. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we're breaking down the Rockets' 128-97 blowout win against the Kings, a game in which Reed Sheppard starts in place of the injured Amen Thompson and absolutely caught fire. Led the way with 28 points, hit a career high 7 3-pointers in this one. We'll talk about how Reed just continues to elevate this team and how they look so good with him out there on the floor, the added dimensions that he brings when he's out on the floor and playing at this level. Alperen Şengün with his triple-double, 26, 13, and 11, an efficient, quiet 21 from Kevin Durant. Also, an impressive 14 points off the bench for Josh Okogie. We're going to get into all of that on today's show. First, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Have your cake and drink it too. Birthday cake flavor is back. No fork needed. Vanilla-y, cakey, flavor caffeinated kick, and no sugar. It's party time. Order now at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. This is now the 7th game in which Reed Sheppard has started this Rockets season. The Rockets are 6-1 in such games. Reed Sheppard, when he plays 30-plus minutes, when he gets big minutes for this Rockets team, when he starts for this Rockets team, good things happen. And we are far beyond the point where Reed Sheppard should be included in the starting lineup at this point. He is everything that this Rockets team desperately misses on offense when the floor falls out from under them, when they can't get anything going. And the more reps you give Reed Sheppard, the sooner, the more minutes that he gets, the more development that he gets, the more opportunities he gets to mesh with the other starters, the better. We saw it against OKC. Seeing it here against the Kings now. And, you take some of this with a grain of salt, just like what we said, about some of the success of what the Rockets did offensively against the Jazz. Sure, the Kings are a bad team as well. The Kings are arguably the most ethical tanking team because they just kind of suck, unfortunately. They're not trying to tank. They're just bad. But, it's great seeing the Rockets string together some high quality looking offensive games. And this one was significantly better than the Jazz game, in large part because the turnovers were actually a lot better managed in this game. Just 13 turnovers on the evening as opposed to the 27 that came against Utah. So cleaning that up considerably, putting up 128 points and having 3 20-plus performances from your 3 best offensive weapons in this game, with Reed Sheppard leading the way, then Alperen Şengün and his big-time triple-double, and a very quiet, efficient 21 from Kevin Durant to go along with 4 rebounds and 5 assists. This feels like a significantly better and more sustainable balancing act for the Rockets offense. And obviously, you're not going to get career nights from Reed Sheppard every night. But seeing the ways in which he adds additional dimensions to this Rockets offense cannot be denied. The Rockets don't have guard play without Reed Sheppard, because as much as I love Amen Thompson, as much as everybody loves Amen Thompson, he doesn't fill that role of a perimeter threat, a perimeter guard, a pull-up shooting threat, a guy that can effectively run the pick and roll and have gravity as a shooter in those pick and roll scenarios. It was beautiful watching Reed Sheppard orchestrate offense, run the show in this game, as well as hunting his own offense and really leveraging his scoring gravity in this one. 28 points for his final stat line, 28 points, 9 of 21 shooting, 7 of 16 from beyond the arc. He had 4 rebounds, couple assists, a steal, a block, just 2 turnovers. And there was, I think, one of my favorite plays of the game. And this is a perfect demonstration of what Reed kind of brings to the table as a guard, as an offensive initiator for this Rockets team. Reed's walking the ball up the floor, and he floats it off to Tari on the weak side. So Reed's kind of walking it up. He's more so on the left side of the court. So that's the strong side, right? So then he floats it off to Tari on the weak side, coming off a pin down from Jabari Smith Jr. Tari fakes the three-pointer and then cuts back in and drives towards the rim. And he drives like in towards the paint at the nail, basically. Alperen Şengün cuts in off the right baseline, and Tari dishes it, kind of a little shovel pass over to Alperen Şengün as he's cutting in on the baseline. Alpi gets kind of pinned under the basket, but he's completely collapsed the defense at that point, and he just flips it out to Kevin Durant in the left corner. So the original, like where the ball was, the strong side originally, flips it out to that left corner, and Kevin Durant gets a wide open three. That was an almost textbook offensive possession with high, like good ball movement. Everybody except Jabari touched the ball on that possession. You got multiple passes, and there were multiple windows in that possession where you could have probably taken a shot. Like Tari could have taken the three-pointer, or he could have driven all the way to the basket and tried to just absorb contact and finish at the rim. Or Alperen Şengün could have tried to, contort his body and take that layup under the basket. But at each moment, instead of taking a tougher kind of contested look, the Rockets fought and continued to whittle down the possession and generate a really high quality shot. And a lot of that starts out on the perimeter with the initial kind of respect that Reed Sheppard gets as a shooter, because all throughout this game, especially with Reed Sheppard hitting 6 threes in the first half, I mean, the way that the Kings started having to overhelp and overcorrect for closing out on shooters, in particular Reed Sheppard in this game, opened up so many opportunities offensively for the Rockets. The spacing was some of the best that we've seen all season. Now, you also attribute some of this to the fact that the Kings are one of the worst defensive teams in the association. So, it's not exactly like a lot of pristine defense was on display in this game, but you still see the recipe for success there. And watching this Rockets team with that much, watching Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün in particular operate with that much space on the floor at pretty much all times throughout the evening, because there wasn't really a stretch where the Rockets ran, some of those lineups that they've run previously where they have 2 or 3 or 4 non-shooters out there all sharing the floor at the same time. This was a game where the Rockets had great shooting on the floor, great floor spacing, and they connected on a ridiculous number of their threes, 17 of 39, 44%. This was really reminiscent of some of the offense that we saw a bit earlier this season, except for the fact that the volume was still just considerably better. 39 threes the Rockets got up in this game. And again, 16 of those came from Reed Sheppard. That's the beauty of having Reed Sheppard out there, and that's one of the key elements missing from this Rockets team, is just being able to get volume amounts of three-pointers off and getting volume threes from your best shooters, mind you. And Reed Sheppard is literally your best three-point shooter at this point. I don't know actually technically if Tari Eason's percentage is still better than Reed's. I think it might be off the top of my head. But you need to prioritize getting a volume number of threes for your best shooters, and seeing Reed get 16 threes off in a game is really encouraging to see. And when he's playing with that amount of confidence, I mean, the sky's the limit for this team and for him in particular. I do want to say there was one play, as good as Reed was, and as crazy was the career high 7 threes, knocked down 6 of them in the first half. So he did cool down significantly in the second half, but by then the Rockets were up big and they kind of were able to just keep it pushing. There was a play where Reed had a floater. It was he only made 2 baskets inside the arc in this game. And he had a floater that he kind of flipped behind his head, driving towards the right-hand side of the hoop. And they were debating this on the broadcast, whether it was a pass or a shot. And they ultimately settled on a shot. It was 1000% a pass, because there's a brief camera angle right after Reed hit the shot where they're running back down to the other end to play defense. And he kind of looks over at CC, Clint Capela, and he kind of does a little shrug, I guess that worked. It was definitely one, he was trying to lob it over the top to Clint, and he overshot it and it went in the basket. At least I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I don't know if anybody asked Reed about it after the game, but I'd be curious to know from the horse's mouth, was it a shot or was it a pass? Either way, the points counted. and it was a stellar game from Reed Sheppard. And the way in which he got his 7th three-pointer, his career high for made threes, was off of a ridiculous pass from Alperen Şengün, man. Alpi goes behind the back out to Reed Sheppard for Alperen Şengün's 11th assist of the night. So his final assist as part of his triple-double, and just couldn't have happened in a better moment. And talking about those two in particular, their chemistry together is another key element of this game that I want to get into. We'll also talk about Alperen Şengün's impact as the offensive hub, the passing facilitator in this game, Kevin Durant's performance, additional thoughts, just kind of the overall improvement to the offensive schemes in this game, the offensive approach. We're going to get to all of that here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft. And how could I go with anything other than strawberry watermelon? To me, strawberry watermelon is an absolutely elite duo in almost any circumstance, but especially with 5 Hour Energy. It's sweet, it's tart, it's got a candy-like flavor. It is an absolutely amazing flavor duo. Some flavors were just made to go together, and strawberry watermelon is at the top of that delicious list of flavor pairings. It's cool, it's crisp, it's caffeinated, it's absolutely awesome, and you can check them out. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. You can pull up the Game Time app and pick an upcoming NBA game and have tickets within minutes. You can see the all-in price up front. That's my favorite part of using Game Time. They are fully transparent from start to finish. The price you see is the price you're going to pay. No surprise fees at checkout. They've got zone deals and last minute tickets options as well. So take the guesswork out of buying your NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. And you know what? It's been a minute since I want to go ahead and do it.
Release the hounds.
I know it's not an amazing team or anything like that, or a crazy good win, but the offense has been encouraging. I want to give credit where credit is due. Also, Locked On Kings has a brand new host, and I want him to experience the hounds. So go swing by Locked On Kings, let them know we said what's up, all that good stuff. I do want to talk about, first off, the chemistry between Reed Sheppard and Alperen Şengün is starting to look better. And that was a major area of concern that I had earlier in the season. It felt like those two, their chemistry was just off with one another. And it does take time, right? One, in part because Reed is still so incredibly young, and him getting adjusted to being the point guard and running the floor and trying to, initiate offense and learning really all the intricacies of that part of his role in the Rockets offense. There's a lot going on there, and it's a lot for two players to get on the same page, right? Especially two very talented offensive players like Alperen Şengün and Reed Sheppard. It's taken them a minute to try to get that chemistry down and to start figuring out how they can be a good duo together. But it's getting to a point where it's getting really encouraging seeing how Reed is able to consistently feed Alperen Şengün and how Şengün is trusting and feeding Reed Sheppard on the perimeter. And if the Rockets between now and the end of the season can continue to really hone in on and grow the two-man game between Alperen Şengün and Reed Sheppard, that's going to pay some serious dividends down the line. Again, the biggest weakness of this Rockets team is the fact that they are missing Fred VanVleet, and they have a guy that can give you possibly even more than what Fred was going to give you offensively because of how high Reed's ceiling is on any given night with the three-point shooting. But you've got a guy that can give you at least a similar skill set, and they need to lean into it. Reed Sheppard needs to start more games. And I don't know who the sacrifice is. I don't know if you move Amen Thompson to the bench because of the spacing issues and the fit concerns. I don't know if you move one of the Aries to the bench, whether it's Jabari, Tari, what have you. But Reed Sheppard needs to and should be starting games. Or if he's not going to start, if you're worried about the politics of it, then make him a substitution at the 8-minute mark of the first quarter. Like bring him in ASAP and send Amen Thompson or one of the Aries to the bench right away so that you can lean into this better. He should be playing 30 plus minutes a night every single game. And it's really hard to get him those minutes when he's coming off the bench, right? There's almost an artificial cap built in. If you're missing the first 6 minutes of each half, that means out of the remaining 36 minutes of a game, you got to play 30 of those 36 minutes. It's almost impossible to do. It's the same dilemma the Rockets had last year when Amen Thompson was coming off the bench. He was so impactful off the bench that Ime kept trying to get him up to 30, 35 minutes a game, but that's really hard when you're sitting for the first 5 or 6 minutes of the first and third quarter. So it's the same dilemma, just with a more of an offensive conundrum because of how good Reed has been for this team offensively versus Amen Thompson, who was a defensive wrecking ball last year, and how important he was to the defensive identity this team had cultivated last season. So the sooner the Rockets make that change, the better off the rest of the season will be. And honestly, the more fun we're going to have. Watching Reed Sheppard play out there is fun. He adds a level of excitement and electricity to the game that has been sorely missing this season. When Reed gets hot, has been some of the most fun moments of this entire season, for me, at least personally, and I'm sure for many other Rockets fans. But seeing the ways in which Alperen Şengün and Reed Sheppard have been able to better complement one another of late has been really encouraging. And just seeing Alperen Şengün get back to the way that he was playing earlier this season. This is the best version of Alperen Şengün. This is the all-NBA version of Alperen Şengün. This is the all-star version of Şengün. This is the top 15, top 10 player in the NBA version of Alperen Şengün. 26 points, 9 of 13 shooting, 1 of 2 beyond the arc, 7 of 8 at the free throw line, 13 rebounds, 4 of them on the offensive glass, 11 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, only 2 turnovers, plus 23 in 32 minutes. Monster game from Şengün. And what I'm seeing from Alp at this point is he is locked back into where he is playing his best brand of basketball, which means being aggressive, being quick and concise with his decision making, not holding on to the ball for, 5, 6, 7 seconds, waiting to see what the defense is going to do, serving. He is making decisions quickly, getting in and out of his actions, and attacking the defense and putting that pressure immediately. And then as soon as the defense reacts, with whether it's with a double team, single coverage, whatever, he's making the right decisions. And in this game, when the Kings left him alone and didn't send a second defender, he basically torched Maxime Reynaud or whoever was guarding him. And when they did send help, when they were able to effectively collapse the defense, he had a bunch of beautiful passes out to open shooters. This was the ideal Alperen Şengün offensive hub styled game. And I don't know why the Rockets seemingly went away from it when it was working so well for the first 20 or so games of the season, because it did feel like there was this weird internal shift on how they were playing offense for a period there, where they really leaned into Şengün for the first quarter of the season. And then it did feel like they kind of shifted away. And then maybe when they tried to shift back, then that's when Alp wasn't playing his best and the decision-making kind of was wavering a little bit and he started to struggle. So it's great to see him playing this style of basketball again. We know what he's capable of. And when he plays like this, when you've got Alperen Şengün in the middle, facilitating, breaking down the defense the way that he did. Hell, there was one play where Alp was in the middle of the floor, caught the ball in the short roll and faked a pass out to the corner. And then it's like the seas just parted and he had a wide open dunk in the middle of the lane. And it's because he had been so lethal with his passing up to that point that all the defenders were so worried about where the kick out pass was going to go, they forgot to actually guard the guy. It's games like this that earn Alperen Şengün the baby Jokic moniker, because these are the games where you see the vision, where you see, okay, if you can get him playing like this on a consistent basis, this is no worse than a top 10 player in the NBA. And this is absolutely the best version of offense for the Houston Rockets. And in part, it happens because when you have proper floor spacing and the right shooters and weapons around Alperen Şengün, good things happen. This was a game where the Rockets were unable to be exposed for their lack of three-point shooting at any point because they'd never really fielded a lineup that had multiple non-shooters in it. Even the lineups that featured Josh Okogie, because he was knocking down the three ball at an elite clip. Josh Okogie was on paper probably the Rockets' weakest three-point shooter that was on the floor in this game outside of their bigs, right? Outside of Capela and Şengün. So he was the biggest liability on the perimeter at any point, and he went 3 for 4 beyond the arc. Very good stuff from Okogie in this one. I want to give him his flowers. I do want to highlight the other contributors from this game. I thought Ime Udoka did a good job balancing lineups in this one, especially on the first night of a back-to-back. I want to get to final thoughts from this game here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for with skills, experience, and location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about us, about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. And you know what? One of the best parts about this game, and this is so sensational, is we're now in the third segment of the podcast, and we're only just now talking about Kevin Durant because he didn't have to do an insane amount of heavy lifting in this game. And this is one of the first games in a while where it's felt like KD hasn't had to be Superman for the Rockets to be able to win a game. And that's important. Right, the Rockets need to be able to take a little bit of the burden off KD because this is the version where if this game had turned into if later in the game maybe the lead starts to collapse a little bit, or if it had been against say a better opponent, right, instead of Ime flushing out the bench and going to the garbage time so early in the fourth quarter and spreading the love around, going 10 deep in the rotation, this is the style of game where you could very easily envision, okay, if this was a tougher opponent, a harder opponent, whatever, you divvy up all those shots that went to all the stay ready crew guys and all that, and you imagine Kevin Durant becomes a much bigger part of the offense in this game, but he didn't need to be. And it was great seeing Kevin actually walk away with some really easy shots, like the play that I described in segment 1, where he was the last guy to touch the ball on the possession and wound up with a wide open 3-pointer because of it. Right. So moments like that are so important to be able to take a little bit of the pressure off of KD, keep him more fresh throughout a given game so that by the time we get to crunch time, he's not wiped out and unable to deliver in those big moments, right? That's kind of the idea that we had. Go get KD. He can be your closer, all that good stuff. It's really hard to have the juice to close every single time if you've been leaned on for the first 42 plus minutes of a game to initiate all the offense and to be involved in every action and to ISO down every possession and get bailout bucket after bailout bucket. So being able to have high level offense run throughout the first 3-ish quarters of a game and then get to the fourth quarter where if things do start to slow down, if guys are tired, if the offense starts to break down a little bit, that's where you can just rely on the individual talent of a Kevin Durant or an Alperen Şengün to bail you out at the end of games. But when the Rockets run into issues is when they start reverting to, or I guess devolving into that style of offense early in games, right? Where we see the crappy ISO and the stagnant offense starting late in the first quarter or early in the second quarter instead of at the end of games. So it's understandable. Offensive breakdowns are going to happen. You're going to need your stars and your good offensive players to bail you out from time to time, but you don't want that to be your first resort. You don't want that to be option number one on your offensive hierarchy. And seeing the ball movement, seeing the passing, seeing how guys were getting each other involved. 47 made baskets, 29 assists on those 49 made baskets. Ball movement and pace of play, the tempo this Rockets team is playing at has been so much better as of late. And it remains to be seen if they can carry that into teams with better defensive approach, or teams with a better defensive approach to the game. And it'll be a good test seeing it up against the Magic. But I do like what I'm seeing. And this is hopefully some encouraging signs from the Rockets coaching staff that they've looked at some things and identified some things and figured out, okay, this is where we're leaving some meat on the bone that we can capitalize on for the final stretch of this season. Speaking of the coaching staff, I did like, Ime Udoka going 10 deep in this game was really important. First night of a back-to-back. And look, this is a a Rockets team that has had issues with back-to-backs this season, mainly on the second night of back-to-backs. They're an older roster outside of their young core. And so I do think that seeing him go 10 deep on the roster, I mean, we got like actual rotation minutes from Jeff Green in this game and Aaron Holiday and Isaiah Crawford, who shout out to Isaiah Crawford, man. He had great energy in this game, great activity. It was awesome to see him out there getting some run. I feel like he's made the most of his minutes whenever he's been on the floor for this team, and going 10 deep like that allowed a lot of the starters to get some and blowing the Kings out, obviously, allowed them to get some very significant rest. KD only played 28 minutes. The most minutes played by a Rocket starter was 33 from Jabari. So everybody should be extra fresh and ready to go for night 2 of this back-to-back in Orlando on Thursday evening. And so I do like what Ime Udoka was able to do there. Kind of wish we'd seen that a little bit more often earlier in the season with some of those back-to-backs, because, that's one of the beauties of having like those players on the stay ready crew, right? Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday, Jayshawn Tate when he's available. Hell, Clint Capela was originally a member of the stay ready crew and he got promoted with the Steven Adams injury. But with all those guys playing, as well as Amen Thompson being out, kind of opening up some minutes and opportunities for all those guys to play a little bit. And hopefully this is something that we see moving forward, because Ime has been very, has taxed Kevin Durant and Amen Thompson considerably this season with their minutes per game on a night-to-night basis. Ideally, for this final stretch of the year, in order to keep them both healthy and to not overburden them, I'd like to see Ime kind of trim down their minutes a little bit. And if it means you sneak in Isaiah Crawford for 10 first half minutes or something, or give him some spot minutes here or there, or you include Jeff Green occasionally just because you need that extra floor spacer and a vet out there to make sure things don't go crazy. Like, there's no rule that says you have to play only an 8 or 9 man rotation every single game. Like, you can go 10 deep or 11 deep more consistently and preserve your starters a little bit more and probably get better energy and effort as a direct result of it too. So really liking that. Hopefully that's something that continues on with this team as well. I will say it was disappointing that Jabari went back to clanking from 3 in this one, although he's been on such a consistent tear as of late that we'll just chalk it up to a one-off and hopefully he bounces back next game. But 12 points, 0-4 from downtown, 6 of 12 overall. So he was 6 of 8 inside the arc, which is good, good sight to see from him. But needs that 3-ball falling in order to be the most effective version of himself. Kind of a quietish game from Tari Eason, just 8 points, couple boards, an assist, a steal, a block. Nothing super crazy to write home about with Tari Eason there, but Josh Okogie, that was the other name I wanted to make sure I shouted out here. Just his impact off the Rockets bench. Mentioned all the other names stepping in, but him, his 3-point shooting, his energy level, his activity, he was a team best plus 30 in his minutes. And getting Josh Okogie in that little super sub energy role off the bench, comes in, provides immediate hustle, energy. When the 3-ball is falling with Josh, he is a perfect reserve role player that can come in and help you maintain or even build upon a lead. So liked a lot of what we saw out of him, and he's been such an amazing pickup for this Rockets team. Like, cannot say enough good things about Josh Okogie. Even though I was a little worried that there was a chance Ime Udoka was going to start Josh Okogie over Reed Sheppard. Glad that I joked about the pitchforks being out if that were to happen. I'm glad that the pitchforks were able to be kept stowed away and that Ime Udoka did the right thing and started Reed Sheppard with Amen Thompson being out. But that's kind of the other, and look, this is the elephant in the room, and we're going to have to dedicate some time to talking about this, but the elephant in the room here is the team might look better offensively without Amen Thompson out there. And it's less about it being without Amen Thompson and more just that between Alperen Şengün and Amen Thompson, their skill sets are so duplicative and their weaknesses are also so similar that unless the Rockets are willing to play a very specific brand of basketball with those two guys sharing their minutes on the floor, it's going to not look as crisp, as clean, as nice as it has when you've had the 4 shooters surrounding Alpi, or even the 4 shooters surrounding Amen Thompson, which is why I've argued so much that Ime needs to split those guys up as much as possible. And instead, oftentimes what we see is Alperen Şengün and Amen Thompson minutes more or less being anchored together, right? Those guys sub out at the same time. They sub back in at the same time to run the second unit. And I think that that's kind of the mistake in the sub patterns here, is that instead Ime needs to probably anchor Amen Thompson with Reed Sheppard or Kevin Durant, like anchor him to one of the shooters, and then pick whoever you don't anchor Amen Thompson to. That's who you anchor Alperen Şengün with. Now, if you want to stagger Alperen Şengün and Kevin Durant, in order to do that, that means you need Alperen Şengün and Reed Sheppard together. So then that means you need Kevin Durant and Amen Thompson together. So let Amen Thompson have all his minutes attached with Kevin Durant, right? And then when Alp checks out of the game, you leave Amen Thompson in the game. And then when Alp checks back in, you bring Amen Thompson to the bench, right? And then you're maximizing both of their skill sets because you're giving them both so much more space to work with offensively. I think that's the encouraging thing, and that's at least the thing that I'm hoping we can see more of as the season progresses. But that's kind of the elephant in the room right now is how do the Rockets maximize the talent that they have? How do they maximize Alperen Şengün and Amen Thompson, and also getting the most out of Reed Sheppard when he clearly is able to deliver with a skill set that this team desperately needs on a night-to-night basis? A lot of good stuff to take away from this Kings game, and hopefully the coaching staff has a lot of stuff that they can learn about this team and continue to build on from this game. I do want your thoughts on this Rockets win. Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. What was the most important thing about this game? What stood out the most to you? What did you like about Reed's performance, his career-high 7 triples, the Alperen Şengün triple-double? Also, shout out, it was Cocaine Curry versus triple-double Cocaine Bear in this one, with Russell Westbrook popping off in the first quarter. 17 first quarter points for Russell Westbrook. Only scored 5 points the rest of the way. Just the craziest Russell Westbrook stat line, man. But that was a ton of fun watching Russ and Reed go back and forth in this one. The Şengün triple-double, Kevin Durant's super efficient night, Josh Okogie's energy, all that good stuff. Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.